Conservative politicians and online commentators like to spend a lot of time owning the libs or making fun of liberals. But maybe we should be spending more of that time actually stopping liberals and stopping their policies, or better yet, holding conservative politicians accountable who aren't doing their job. For example, here in Canada, Pierre Poilievre was just owning Trudeau in the House of Commons the other day, and Bill C-11 recently just got passed through the House of Commons, taking away our freedom of speech online. And in the States, Ron DeSantis, who is being championed as being anti-woke, just flew to Israel to pass a bill against anti-Semitism, infringing upon the First Amendment rights of all Americans. This is a problem that we need to talk about, and the conversation starts now.
I promise you, I will not let you down.
The trucks parked outside illegally should move.
Canada's Conservatives will meet our Paris climate commitment.
Enough with the woke. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I take that back.
To champion our conservative principles.
We are the party of law and order.
To call in the auditors.
We haven't yet decided whether we're going to call for the government to impose a mandatory test or vaccination.
And we will win the next election. Canada must not ignore the reality of climate change.
Why weren't Canadians vaccinated in January and February like everyone else?
Welcome, everybody, to Controlled Opposition, episode 15. I am Greg Wycliffe. Our wonderful guest host could not make it today because he's something to do with a goat farm and CSIS agents. It's a long story, but we have a fantastic show for you tonight. We're getting into some very, very intense topics, and I'm excited to share them with you. First and foremost, owning the libs. Okay, owning the libs. We all want to talk about how we get to own the libs, but are we actually getting W's in Canada? Are we actually getting W's in the States? We're going to be going over, of course, the fact how Bill C-11, unfortunately, just passed here in Canada. And at the same time, we have all these clips of Pierre Poilievre in the House of Commons owning the libs and owning Trudeau. And if you would have guessed it, talking about money, talking about the price of milk, or in this case, the price of a hotel room. And I want to give a great example of something that's just happened in the States that is very, very concerning and is related to what we're also seeing in Canada, which is Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, he's a champion against the woke. Florida is the most free, right? Florida is the most free state that you would want to live in the United States, correct? Well, he just flew to Israel to pass a bill that applies to Florida that has to do with anti-Semitism. And we have actually the line by line of what's implicated in this bill. And it's really not good for freedom of speech, to say the least. And believe it or not, if you didn't know, there is a bill that was tabled by the Conservative Party of Canada that kind of echoes the same sentiment. And before we get started, I'll do a quick caveat, a quick sort of disclaimer. I feel silly to even have to do this, but I do not endorse violence. Okay, I do not endorse hate of any specific group of people. Okay, that's not in my heart. However, I do endorse criticizing all different groups. I think I believe in freedom of speech. I think everyone should be able to be criticized evenly and openly. But of course, hatred and violence is kind of that line where I don't think, let's not cross that line to openly promote that sort of thing. Okay. We got that out of the way. Good. Fantastic. I'm glad. How are we all doing tonight? I'm feeling great. Let's get into the bad news happening here in Canada. Pablo Rodriguez, he is one of the ministers. What is he the minister of this time? Canadian Heritage, of course. He used to be Stephen Guilbeault, that guy who looks like a crook, and now we have Pablo Rodriguez, this next crook, this next gangster, who is shoving Bill C-11 through. The Senate just voted to pass C-11. Our stories matter. And with C-11, we are supporting our artists and creators so they can continue sharing their stories with the world. Now, if you're watching Controlled Opposition, you probably know that this is bullshit. You probably know that this is this guise of supporting artists is total nonsense. You know, I have been able to grow an audience on YouTube and big tech. Big tech is not perfect, but guess what? I was able to grow an audience. No thanks to the Canadian government. The Canadian government has not helped me one bit. It was actually Google. As much as I don't like Google and can criticize Google in certain ways, they actually did help me reach an audience. The Canadian government did not help me with that at all. That's pretty obvious. However, you know, this has passed, and I was on top of Bill C-11 back when it was C-10. I was talking all about it on TikTok, on social media, and it seems as though that whenever Pierre Poilievre has something to say, it's always too little, too fucking late. You know, it's too little, too late. The last thing that Pierre Poilievre has done about C-11, if I'm not mistaken, is he had a petition and a fundraiser. I think he had a fundraiser and a petition, one or the other. But it's like, oh, the Libs are taking away our freedom of speech online. Make sure you send me money. Make sure you send me money right down the pipe. You know, give us your email, give us your information, and we're gonna say freedom of speech. Well, it's too late, isn't it? It's too late. You know, you weren't proactive about this. And the common thread that we've talked about many times on Controlled Opposition is how this Conservative Party does not have a leg to stand on. They do not have a leg to stand on. They don't even have a spear to throw at their enemy, metaphorically, of course. They don't have a sort of bludgeoning way to shame and ridicule their opponents. What are they fighting with the Liberals against? It's literally the price of milk. It's literally money all the time. Money. That is really all they have in terms of being able to criticize criticize the Liberal government or Justin Trudeau for that matter. And you might say, oh, well, Greg, no, he, one time Pierre Poilievre said defund CBC, and one time Pierre Poilievre said that Bill C-11 bad. That's great, but that's not nearly enough. Okay, that's not nearly enough. And we'll just show, this clip was from the other day from Pierre Poilievre. I find this stuff hard to watch now just because it seems like such theater. This was from just the other day, April 26th, just yesterday. We have the largest federal public sector strike in Canadian history, 150,000 people, and Trudeau is escaping to New York.
All he's delivered is a bureaucracy that...
Let's turn it up a bit, shall we? Why isn't that louder? That should be way... Is that... Hopefully you guys can hear that. Oh, this should be turned up. Here we go. All right, Pierre. All right, PP. Let's see what you have to say.
All he's delivered is a bureaucracy that costs $20 billion more per year. That's $1,300 per Canadian family, a 50% increase. And for what? For immigration services not being delivered, for veterans who can't get answers to their requests, and now taxpayers who won't be able to get answers to their tax questions before the filing deadline on Monday. Given that Canadian taxpayers are not getting the services they pay for, is it time for them to go on strike as well?
Honorable Prime Minister, we'll take no lesson.
I don't want to listen to this guy, but yeah, I'm not going to listen. We'll go to the other part. I want to comment on a couple of things he said. First of all, $20 million more per year. I'm gonna bring up this analogy here because I think it's a really good one. This is really what the Conservative Party is. Okay. Not only do they not have a leg to stand on, they do not. Sorry, this is the Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the Black Knight. Like, this is the Conservative Party of Canada. They don't have a leg to stand on. They don't even have a sword to swing. Okay. They're literally standing there saying, you spent too much money. You spent too much money. And the Liberal Party is there. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not even opposing me in any sort of reasonable grounds. They don't have a leg to stand on here. What am I talking about? I'm talking about, of course, They're not opposing the transgender ideology. For that matter, that they wouldn't oppose anything like abortion. Okay, so they don't have their feet on the ground. They can't even connect with any sort of Christian morality to condemn things. They actually support these things, as we've gone over on the show before. So they can't attack them on any moral grounds there of attacking children, which is a very powerful thing, which would really make a lot of movement. A lot of conservatives are very, very passionate about that. There are people coming out of the woodwork. You want to talk about wins? What is it here? Yeah. You want to talk about W's? Breaking. Tonight, the township of Norwich voted against allowing pride flags to fly on municipal lands, and they voted against proclaiming June as Pride Month. These two, and then someone says this homophobic. No, this is a huge W. This is a bunch of regular people in the township of Norwich saying, hey, no, we actually don't want to do that. We don't want to have to, put up all this pride shit. We're kind of sick of it. And I think it was a tweet by Ben Bankus that was like, it's not that people are homophobic. It's just, we're just kind of sick of it. We're just kind of sick of all the rainbow stuff everywhere. But this is a huge W. No thanks to the Conservative Party of Canada. If anything, conservatives they're like, let's put up more rainbow flags because we want to be more progressive. Pride Month is next month, June. So it's going to be a crap show. But this is what I'm saying. This Conservative Party is not willing to even take a stand on that. So they don't have that. They don't have legs. They don't even have legs to stand on when it comes to this. And how about the fact that we're in a democratic country? Okay, we're supposed to be in this free democratic country. There was this thing called COVID-19 and the Trucker Convoy. There were arrests, frozen bank accounts, and I don't have to go over all this. You know all of this. And this Conservative Party said, oh, the Emergencies Act was invoked and people were crushed with police horses, a peaceful protest, like an entirely peaceful protest. Yeah, we're not going to say anything about that. Both of their arms just got cut off, to use this Black Knight analogy. Okay? Both of their arms got completely cut off. So you can't even condemn Justin Trudeau or the Liberal Party when it comes to authoritarian behavior. You can't condemn them when it comes to that. So what are you left with? You're left with the price of milk. You're left with the price of milk, or you're left with literally singing and dancing about the price of a hotel room, which we'll get to right here.
Leader of the opposition.
This guy is so out of touch. Here we have 150,000 people on strike, the biggest federal strike in Canadian history. Canadians can't get their services. Meanwhile, their housing costs have doubled and crime is ravaging through our streets. And what is he going to do today? Well, start spreading the news. He's leaving today. He wants to be a part of it. New York, New York. These are small-time blues. They're melting away. I'll make a new start of it in old New York. Mr. Speaker, I can't sing very well, but at least...
I'm honestly so sickened that everyone's just laughing ha 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 ha. Yeah, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, we're totally owning the Libs, bro. We're totally owning Trudeau, dude. Ha 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 ha. Trudeau's going to New York. Owned. He's a world leader. He's going to New York. So what? This is this is, you're a Black Knight. You're a Black Knight yelling at Trudeau. Nobody cares. They're just walking away from you. Okay, bro, cool. Make fun of me for buying an expensive hotel room in New York. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And let's talk about the hypocrisy of this as well. Pierre Poilievre, he cares about money. He wants to save money. Right? He wants to save taxpayer money. That is his main thing, saving taxpayer money. And he's getting at Trudeau's throat. How much did you pay on that hotel room? How much did you, hey Trudeau, how much did you pay on that hotel room? Do you think we're stupid, Pierre Poilievre? Do you know how small of a drop in the bucket that him paying for a hotel room is? Even if it's a $9,000 hotel room, that is less than peanuts. That is absolutely nothing in terms of the waste of taxpayer money. And you're seriously trying to get your base, you're trying to get the conservatives of this country all up in arms about an expensive hotel room. You know, it's the exact same thing. It's very, very similar to what Trudeau and the Liberals do when they're like, hey, here's a $900 rebate. Here's a $900 rebate. It's a slap in the face. You know, when the Liberals do that, hey, $400, $500 rebate for the carbon credit, for the carbon tax. Wow. It's a slap in the face. It's very similar to, what's her face? Chrystia Freeland saying, you know what? I save money by cutting out Disney Plus. That's what I do. I take care of the finances in our household. Yeah, that's all you should take care of the finances in your household, not the fucking country, because you've done a shit job of that, quite frankly. But this is what I mean. It's very similar to the Disney Plus thing. Hey, we're going to save you $9. Why? Hey, Canadians, we know that inflation is at a all-time low. Cost of living is going up and the quality of life is going down. But save $9 a month on Netflix. Hey, here's a $500 rebate. And at the same time, you have the opposition saying, whoa, Trudeau spent $5,000. He bought a bunch of booze on an airplane. That's $5,000. Oh my God. It's peanuts. It's peanuts. It's nothing. They're getting you excited about nothing. It is not something to get excited about, especially in the context of where we are right now. Especially in the context of where we are right now. With this transgender ideology just taking over, like all of society is being held hostage by the alphabet people. Are we going to talk about the fact that this person who doesn't even know their gender is like basically, metaphorically pointing a gun at my head if I don't call them by their pronouns? They're gonna ruin my life if I don't wear the pride jersey. They're gonna call me homophobic and transphobic if I don't rep their rainbow colors everywhere. Are we going to talk about that? These people are absolute cowards. And they're literally they're looking through liberal receipts. Oh, I found an expensive receipt. Let's condemn them for that. It's absolutely pathetic. And I want to bring up this image on screen because people need to get that, burn this into your head, guys. Burn this into your head. This is our Conservative Party. This is what they're using to come at the opposition with. This is what they come to the House of Commons with. They have no arms, no legs, no weapon. They're just saying the price of milk. Nothing. There's no opposition. There's nothing opposing this liberal Trudeau regime, and quite frankly, I think they're a part of it. And speaking of which, let's talk and about that strike and about that strike. This public service strike. You know, Pierre Poilievre could have so much to say during this strike. He could really radically change the conversation. We've talked about this before on the show, but especially since the convoy, especially since COVID, there's, starting the new leadership of the new Conservative Party, there was such an opportunity for someone like Pierre Poilievre to completely change the conversation, to change the moral frame, and to establish a new moral authority in Canada, saying authoritarianism, bad. Okay? Authoritarianism, bad. I don't like it when Canadians get crushed with police horses. Peaceful protesters get crushed with police horses. I don't like it when bank accounts get frozen. It's funny, how Pierre Poilievre loves to talk about money so much and had nothing to say. Maybe one small clip. Of course, nothing in a press conference, nothing in the House of Commons. Nothing to say about bank accounts being frozen. What country have we even been living in with this happening? And this Conservative Party has nothing to say about this, some of the worst possible authoritarian actions you could imagine? Nothing to say. And because that they failed to bring that up as any sort of moral thing, they didn't wield the sword of moral authority and say, hey, authoritarianism bad, stop that, Trudeau. Didn't do that. And not only that, the Public Emergencies Act inquiry happened. The Rouleau Commission said, hey, using the Emergencies Act on peaceful protesters is totally A-okay. And then Pierre didn't even challenge that. So Pierre used the Trucker Convoy to win Conservative Party leadership. He used the literally blood, sweat, and tears of the Trucker Convoy and convoy supporters to win leadership into the Conservative Party. And then at the first easiest convenience, he's like, yeah, I'm not actually going to fight for you guys. Oh, yeah, you guys got beaten by police horses? Good. I'm not going to oppose that. Shouldn't have been standing there. It's like, wow. So this guy's a total scumbag. Not only is he not going to a champion, being anti-authoritarian, but he's actually going to rubber stamp it. This guy is going to approve of the authoritarianism. And along with that, a couple other things which could be they really could be low-hanging fruit if you wanted to, again, radically change the conversation and change the moral authority in this country. He could say, hey, Trudeau, we've talked about this before on the show. Jeremy does a much better job of this, but he essentially says, hey, Trudeau, remember the time when you said, we don't want unvaccinated people on a plane or a train, and they're all racist, they're all misogynist, and they're taking up space? The prime minister of our country othered and essentially dehumanized and dismissed a massive portion of our population. You should condemn somebody for doing that. You should condemn the leader of a democratic country for doing that. And here, coming full circle to this public servants strike, what is he talking about? He's talking about, wow, you just ran away. You ran away from the protesters. He ran away from when has that happened before? Oh yeah, during the Trucker Convoy. Not only that, Trudeau basically pretended to be sick or something, or he was sick, and had nothing to say to the Trucker Convoy, one of the largest protests in Canadian history. This would be a great time to bring that up and talk about how Justin Trudeau abandoned the people and said F you to the people. And, at least the public service strikers from PSAC, at least they're actually having negotiations. At least they actually get negotiations. A lot of them still have jobs, by the way. They're actually still getting paid. Comparing these two is actually completely silly, because there's people trying to do that. Oh, this is how a real protest, this is how a real strike happens. We're not going to get into that though, because that just makes my blood boil so much. These people who are trying to compare the two things. You have people out of work because they made a medical decision. They said, I don't want to have to take this experimental injection. Okay. They lost their job. They can't go back to school. They lost their livelihood. They're out of business. Their families have been torn apart because the media propaganda has convinced them that they're an evil person, and on and on. The absolute devastation of lockdowns. That's what these people were protesting about. Something so universally awful for so many people out there who decided not to get vaccinated, or even were just caught in the crossfire of all the COVID restrictions. And no politician in the House of Commons wants to champion that cause. We're sweeping it under the rug. Not even the official opposition. It's absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. But let's play this last clip here again.
Their housing costs have doubled and crime is ravaging through our streets. And what is he going to do today? Well, start spreading the news. He's leaving today. He wants to be a part of it. New York, New York. These are small-time blues. They're melting away. I'll make a new start of it in old New York. Mr. Speaker, I can't sing very well, but at least I pay for my hotel rooms. Will he pay for his hotel costs when he goes to New York tonight?
Wow, that's the big own. That's the big own, eh? Is he going to pay for his hotel room? This is absolutely pathetic, you guys. This is absolutely pathetic. And again, keep in mind, what did he accomplish here? Because clips like this get people excited. Hey, he sang a song in the House of Commons, and he made fun of Trudeau for going to New York. Is that it? Is that it? Bill C-11 just got passed today. And look at these conservatives just laughing. Ha 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 ha. That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, good joke. Good joke, Pierre Poilievre. What are you doing to actually help us, man? What are you doing to actually turn this around? because it almost seems like you're seeing C11 pass. I'm sure it's going to turn into a, hey, don't you worry. If we get the libs out, then we'll turn around Bill C11. Great. And just like I'm saying, if they would have changed the moral paradigm in this country and said authoritarianism bad, and really harped on this over and over and over again, because there's a lot of examples, political prisoners, frozen bank accounts, people still out of work because of mandates. Justin Trudeau ran on a pro-segregation platform in 2021. This is a democratic, free country, and said, hey, I'm going to segregate society. That's what I'm going to do. And he hasn't even been condemned by it, hasn't been condemned for it by the official opposition. It's hard to fathom that they're doing anything than just like helping them at this point, because Trudeau he truly is so bad. It's true. He's awful. He's terrible. He's ruining this country, blah, 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 blah. But we don't even have an opposition that can criticize him about anything other than the price of a hotel room. Awful. Terrible. Terrible. These guys suck, because if they were to have gotten up the whole, hey, authoritarianism bad, they could springboard that to talk about C11. Get more people excited about C11, because right now, no more people are really coming into the fold of the Conservative Party. It's the same old Conservative Party, just talking about money, the price of milk. Hey, Mr. Trudeau, actually, you spent all this money on martinis on your plane. You think this gets voters excited? Do you think this is bringing new people into the fold? No, they're going to see that and be like, this is the same old Conservative Party. This is nothing that I care about. Whereas if you change the conversation, that could be completely different. Things could be so much better. Thank you for the super chat, Karina Parks. All right, guys, we're going to get into the other spicy topics today. We don't always cover American politics. We try to focus on Canadian politics. I'm Canadian, and we need to, this Conservative Party in Canada really does suck. But something happened just today, which is chef's kiss of a problem, a phenomena, if you will, that is also happening here in Canada. But this is a good example. This is a good kind of jumping off point to talk about. Full disclosure, I don't follow American politics as closely, so I'm not going to be as well versed in all of this stuff. So I do apologize, but let's get into it without further ado. So Ron DeSantis signs legislation to combat hate crimes while on trip to Israel. You may know Ron DeSantis is the Florida governor, and he's done some cool stuff in the past. He said a lot of great stuff about fighting wokeism. If I'm not mistaken, he has been responsible for, helping protect children from the trans or gay ideology, if I'm not mistaken. So he has done some good stuff. Absolutely. But when it comes to this, it's certainly a red flag, or it's like a white and blue flag. It's some sort of flag to what he's doing here. And that is infringing upon our freedom of speech. If you follow politics closely from any sort of right-wing perspective, any sort of conservative perspective, it's becoming quite obvious that they are coming after our freedom of speech. They don't like the fact that people can speak freely. Okay. Bill C11 is a great example. Bill C11 is essentially, hey, we want to control your algorithms. We want to control your algorithms and control what you see on social media. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? Right? What could go wrong? The same government responsible for all of these COVID restrictions and ruining our economy. Everything they touch turns to liquid shit. Let's have them get a hold of our internet. Let's have them get a hold of that, and let's see how that goes. Yeah, not going to be good. But along with that is this Bill C11 is just one bill. They want to pass others that have to do with online harms. I'm pretty sure that this is a separate bill coming. But then again, Bill C-11, if I'm not mistaken, is written so broadly that they might be able to wedge in all of their extra hate speech stuff into this piece of legislation. Hopefully not. But the point is, they are clearly coming after our freedom of speech. And you would think, as a conservative, as a right-wing minded person, that, oh my God, we got to get the libs out. We got to stop the left wing. We got to stop the left. We got to stop these progressives. We got to stop these crazy woke people. They're going to try and take our freedoms away, right? But here we have not just a conservative politician in the States, not just like a Republican governor in the States. He's the one who's starting to put, hey, actually, we're going to take some speeches. We're going to take some speech away there. You're not allowed to say this. You're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. That is infringing upon the First Amendment, right? That's infringing upon freedom of speech. It's not coming from the left, actually. Turns out it's coming from the right. Turns out they're sneaking in a fast one on the right. And to bring this back to Canada, this is really interesting. This is really interesting. I actually saw this at the time and was thinking about making a video on it, but I thought, you know what, now's not the time. Coincidentally, right before the Trucker Convoy, during, I guess, the Trucker Convoy, February 9th, 2022, Bill C-250 is given its first reading. I'm not going to get into the details, but this is really all we need to see here. Summary. This enactment amends the criminal code in order to prohibit the communication of statements other than in private conversation that willfully promote anti-Semitism by condoning, denying, or downplaying the Holocaust. I was going to make a comedy video about this that essentially would go something like this. Hey, are you worried about the price of living, crime going up? Are you worried about these lockdowns, ruining society and your livelihood being taken away? Well, as a conservative politician, that's exactly why we need to talk about the Holocaust. It's like, why are, like, right at the peak of COVID insanity, with more and more mandates coming down. They wanted to add interprovincial mandates, by the way, right before the Trucker Convoy. Right as all of that's happening, this crazy crescendo of authoritarian crunching down on Canadians, especially unvaccinated Canadians, the Conservative Party is like, we need to talk about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. Really? Is that really the most important thing on the minds of conservative Canadians right now? We have thousands of nurses out of work, paramedics out of work, students who can't go back to school because they're unvaccinated, all sorts of despair and depression because of lockdowns, because of the ongoing mask mandates. We need to talk about the Holocaust. What the hell is going on here? What the heck is going on here? And for folks who might say, hey, they want to throw the anti-Semite label at me. Hey, hey, I'm some white guy, blonde hair, blue eyes. I don't like this bill for the same reason I don't like the Islamophobia motion, M103 or M104. I don't like it for the same reasons, okay? I don't want certain groups to have privileges. I don't believe in that. I want that equality thing that we've all talked about. Let's have equality where we can all equally criticize one another. Hey, I like you, love you, good. Hey, maybe don't do that. I don't like it when you do that. I don't want the, hey, maybe I don't do that to becoming, oh, well, since I'm part of this group, you're not allowed to say that. I was like, I can't even criticize. And another thing, I explained this to my friend earlier today, which is when you write legislation, you need to kind of assume the worst in people. You need to assume the worst in people. And I mean that as in you need to assume that people might use a piece of legislation or law to kind of finesse it and in a malicious way kind of use that law to their advantage. So especially when you have something as broad as stopping, getting rid of any communications that willfully promotes anti-Semitism. What is anti-Semitism? And we can kind of answer that question by looking at the legislation coming out of the states. And if it's anything about what's in the states, it gets hairy really quickly. It gets hairy really quickly. And to be fair, I agree with some of the things on this list that is defining anti-Semitism, but we're going to get into the weeds here because I'm going to show you how problematic it gets really, really, really quickly. So let me just bring this up on screen here. This is a list of what's part of the American stuff that Ron DeSantis just signed in Israel, right? He just signed this legislation to combat hate crimes. Specifically, it's about anti-Semitism. And this is kind of an outline of the different things that is in there. I'm just going to highlight the more, because some of these are, they're very, very specific to whether it's Holocaust denial. This one, there's mentions of gas chambers and things like this. But let's look at the whole piece of legislation and how it can be really problematic to speech, okay? Because that's what I care about. I care about people's free speech, free to, criticize others. So if you go to the bullet points, counting down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it is the 6th bullet point, accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. So it would be anti-Semitic for me to suggest that a Jewish citizen of America is more loyal to Israel than they are to Americans. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. Like if I was born in Jamaica and I said, you know what, I love Jamaica more than I love Canada, that would essentially be the equivalent. And I'm sure you could go around any country, especially like any country with mass migration, and I'm sure you would get a lot of that. I'm sure you get a lot of people who are like, you know what, Canada's all right, but I think I prefer my home country of India. I think I'm like more loyal. I mean, can you imagine how many immigrants are here working here and they're siphoning all of their money that they're making here back to their home country? I mean, that's obviously different because that's a money transaction, but it still sort of reflects the same thing. And just to kind of exemplify how absurd this point is, by simply accusing a Jewish citizen of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations, there is organizations that are sort of kind of like reflective of this very thing. There's something called the World Jewish Congress, and this is just on their About Mission page, to enhance solidarity among Jewish communities throughout the world and recognizing the centrality of the state of Israel to contemporary Jewish identity, to strengthen the bonds of Jewish communities and Jews in the diaspora with Israel. So, I mean, is that anti-Semitic? Because they're basically saying, hey, we kind of really care about Israel and our people, Jewish people. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, by the way. I think that's great. You're Jewish. You have a priority for Israel. You have a priority for your people. Fantastic. Great. My problem is when a law is being passed that if I were to point that out, I would not just be called anti-Semitic, I would be getting charged for being anti-Semitic. Ron DeSantis. And of course, there's other things in here that might be more agreeable on this piece of legislation about anti-Semitism. But when something like that is in there, this is where it becomes an issue. This is where it becomes a problem because, like I said, people could use this legislation to try and shut somebody up, to try and simply say, hey, you said something like this pertaining to somebody who's from Israel. And, this is a much, 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 much deeper topic, as some of you may know. But essentially, and again, I don't want to speak too much deeper on it because I don't know the specific stats and the facts and the blah, blah, blah. But I can, if I'm not mistaken, like to kind of add how this becomes a huge sort of like just ball of yarn to have this anti-Semitism bill floating out there where you can get, charged as being anti-Semitic if you just say someone who's an Israel American prefers Israel over America. There is a massive Israel lobby in America, and if I'm not mistaken, Israel is gets some of the most foreign aid from America than any other country. So again, it's it becomes really kind of fuzzy when that is the case. And as I said before, if you're an Israeli, you prefer Israel over America, that's totally fine. I just don't think that I should be charged with anti-Semitism for saying that, especially when you have an organization like the World Jewish Congress, which basically that's part of their mission statement. It's really problematic. And First Amendment, right? We're supposed to have this First Amendment. It's there for a reason. It hasn't been changed in a long time for a reason. And it's the president as well. Like the president that this sets is not a good one, because who's to say that it might not introduce another category of people that are going to have privileges and have protections, right? Not a good precedent to set. And just to kind of bring it back to Canada as well, there are organizations like this as well in Canada. This might not be the best one. This is CJPAC. CJPAC is a national, independent, multi-partisan organization. Our mandate is to engage Jewish and pro-Israel Canadians. Is a pro-Israel Canadian more pro-Israel than Canada? I don't know. They're not pro-Canadian Israel Canadians. They're pro-Israel Canadians. You see what I'm saying? I don't know what the specific legislation here is in Canada, but if it's anything like the one that's being passed by Ron DeSantis in Israel, it's not good. It's not good for freedom of speech. And guys, conservatives, we need to be awake to this, because it sets a bad precedent. And you thought the freedom of speech was going to be attacked from the left. Sure, in a way, it's being attacked from the left with Bill C-11, but this is like fundamental. This is not just online kind of algorithm manipulation stuff. This is speaking in a public forum, speaking at the bus stop, whatever. And I'm sure my detractors, if they're watching, they'll try to say, "Hey, Greg wants to be able to talk about Holocaust denial at the bus stop." No, I do not. I do not care about that sort of thing. It's the precedent that's being set here. It's a bad precedent being set, and any like serious free nation should just be like, no, we're not going to do that for the same reason. We're not going to prioritize protections for Muslim Canadians. We're not going to prioritize protections for, I don't have it with me, but I've talked about this before in the show. It's the exact same thing as what Kristen Wong-Tam is trying to do. So Kristen Wong-Tam is an NDP MPP, and she tabled a piece of legislation essentially saying, we want to protect drag queens. We want to protect the LGBTQ plus. You will get fined $25,000 if you say something that is homophobic or transphobic. This is exactly the same. It actually might not be as worse because it's only a monetary fine and it's not an additional charge, but this is still bad news bears, because this is the opposite of equality, guys. This is hey, we're going to start giving privileges to this group and to that group and to this group and to that group. It creates an unlevel playing field, and it breeds resentment. It breeds people being like, well, why does that person get more than this? Why does that person have protections? Why does this person have protections? And it's just not like to think that people won't take advantage of these protections is naive. These laws exist. If those laws were to exist, then people will be like, you know what? Well, you can't criticize me. You can't criticize me. And guess what? They'd be right. They'd be right. And it's really not a step in the right direction. I hope I don't have to explain why this isn't a step in the right direction, but who else is talking about this? Who else is talking about this? Quite frankly, the people who talk about this have been banned off of social media. Big tech social media. You know, a lot of them who have actually kind of like made a big stink about this, not all of them. Somebody who actually covers this very well in the States is Anomaly. Anomaly spelt with a zero instead of an O. I highly suggest you check Anomaly out. He does fantastic work on this subject. He's probably one of the only, he's the outlier in terms of someone who has actually been successfully being able to ring the alarm bells on this and not be banned off social media. It's Anomaly. But aside from that, there's not many people. Obviously, the official opposition is not talking about this. They're tabling a bill. They're the one tabling the bill about wanting to push anti-Semitism. The so-called, you'll be more free than ever. By the way, we're going to start chipping away at your freedom of speech from the right flank. And I want to end, we're going to wrap it up here in a second, but I want to end by calling out Jordan B. Peterson. Okay, a lot of great things that I love about Jordan B. Peterson. Clean your room. he has, in a way, helped bring Christ and Christianity to young men without them even knowing it. And I think there's a lot of positives about Jordan Peterson. Absolutely. You know, his whole claim to fame, though, was opposing a compelled speech law. He said, this sets a bad precedent for speech. This sets a bad precedent for speech in Canada. I don't care if this offends you, but I'm going to stubbornly say and stand up and say and protest that this sets a bad precedent for speech in Canada. That was his whole claim to fame. And he was right. I don't think people should get fined if they don't use specific speech. Duh. And my question, if Jordan Peterson, because I know you're watching, is why are you not being stubborn about this bill, about this anti-Semitism bill? Because if I'm not mistaken, they speak to specifically Holocaust denial. Okay. And like I said, I'm not someone who likes to try and share a Holocaust denial theories at the bus stop. Okay. However, I do stand-up comedy. And I like to mess around with jokes having to do with history, having to do with the future, having to do with the present. And sometimes that involves hyperbole. Sometimes that involves absurdity. Like there are comedians out there who make jokes about how the Holocaust never happened. And guess what? It gets laughs because it's funny, it's presented in a funny way, and it's absurd, blah, blah, blah. But with this new bill, it's like, hey, you might get thrown in jail for joke. It sets a horrible precedent because where does it end? Jordan Peterson, if you're watching, where would something like that end? It is. I know it's very cliche at this point. So it's a dead horse to be beaten at this point, but it is very cliche to say, this historical event can only be talked about this way. This historical event can only be talked. So what's going to happen next? Because I'm pretty sure this term has been floated. The residential school denialism, denying the residential school, like mass grave, theory. And, I'm not saying residential school, blah, 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 didn't happen in some capacity. However, here we are again. Is it going to be the same thing as the Holocaust denial? If you say it's anything less than 6 million, you are going to get fined or you're going to get persecuted. If you say it's anything less than 300 buried Indigenous kids, you're going to get fined. If you say it's anything less than 3 million, 3 billion people who died of COVID-19, you're going to get this. You see how it could easily progress to that place? There are people out there who want to be able to silence anyone they want whenever they want. To think that this is about stopping hate, this is going to be the rhetoric where, hey, we need to stop the hate crimes, we need to stop all of this. It's a load of hooey. It's a load of hooey. Okay, it's about controlling speech. It's about controlling people, and we know this. A lot of us know this. If you're watching this, you probably understand that. But once again, it comes back to who is opposing this, who is speaking up against this. We have someone like Jordan B. Peterson, who in the past has stubbornly stood up and says that sets a bad precedent for speech in Canada. Where is that energy now, Jordan? Where is that energy now, Mr. Peterson, where they're trying to table and pass a bill, and they just passed it in the state of Florida, where it's like, hey, if you don't speak specifically about this historical event, you're in trouble. That sets a horrible precedent. But perhaps Jordan B. Peterson doesn't have anything to say because he now works for Daily Wire. Someone else who works at Daily Wire is Ben Shapiro, who is a massive Zionist, of a pro-Israel person. Wait, am I allowed to say that? Can I go to Florida anymore? Because Ben Shapiro is very pro-Israel. See this is confusing already. Like to say that. Oh, I can't say this, that he champions Israel and he champions his own people. That's a good thing. But me pointing that out is illegal. Maybe. I don't know. It's very hazy. It's talking about it is insane because it is insane. It sounds like a total mess when it comes to legislating this, writing the law that makes sense, and it should be thrown out in my personal opinion. I had a conversation with my friend today about this already, and there is a reason speech laws have not changed in a long time in free democratic societies. Because my friend was saying, oh, well, what if this? And people are allowed to just target Jewish people and blah, blah. You can't do that already. we have hate speech laws already. You cannot target violence towards a specific group or a specific person through speech. You already can't do that. And that is a good line, I think, to have in the sand. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Is there anything else we should get on here? I think we pretty well covered the topic. It's a big topic, but it needs to be talked about more. Because again, it's our freedom of speech in this country that needs to be protected. Because if that starts to get chipped away at, then we're effed. We're not in a good situation. And what makes it even scary, as I said before, like scarier than ever, as I said before, is it's not just coming from the left. It's not just crazy communists who are trying to censor us. It's also coming from the right. It's creeping in here with first this anti-Semitism bill, and then who God knows what else they're going to be trying to do here. And, I think it is also worth mentioning. It is the fact that so many churches got burnt down in Canada just the other year. Like 71 different churches got burnt down. And of course, this was in some sort of reaction to the residential schools and everything going on. But I find it funny that after so many churches burnt down in Canada, what do we see? We see the Conservative Party of Canada tabling this anti-Semitism bill. And it's like, not to play this card, but it's like, how many synagogues got burnt down recently? Was it 70? Because 70 churches got burnt down in Canada recently, like burned to the ground. You want to talk about an ideology that is like taking hold or, causing buildings and places of worship to be burnt down, then maybe that would be a good place to start. But hey, even as a Christian myself, I would not want some sort of law to like protect Christianity from any sort of criticism. You cannot criticize the church. Don't criticize the church. No, because that's just going too far in the other direction. Okay. So yeah, I don't think any sort of group should have those protections, because we need to have a free society where we're open to criticize everyone. Okay. But it's about love speech. It's about freedom of speech, and it's about speaking up and actually talking about it. So thank you so much for watching. And if you want to learn more about this topic, then you can go check out Anomaly on Facebook and YouTube, which is spelled AN0MALY. If you want to support the show, you can go to gregwycliffe.com. There's a bunch of donation links there. You would really be helping me out. I greatly appreciate it. But aside from that, we will talk to you next week on Controlled Opposition. And as always, it is okay to demand higher standards. Thank you for watching.